Simple Truth brand makes it easy to find better-for-you products that are free from unwanted ingredients. From fresh produce and snacks to household cleaners and more. You won't find artificial ingredients, preservatives, or harsh chemicals in Simple Truth products. So you can fill your fridge and your home with simple, easy-to-understand choices you can feel good about. Just look for the green Simple Truth circle to get the quality items you want, free from the ingredients you don't want. Simple Truth, exclusively at Baker's.
At Baker's, shopping with pickup and delivery is the same as shopping in-store. Same low prices, deals, and rewards on the same high-quality items. It's one small click for groceries, one big win for busy families everywhere. Start your cart today at bakersplus.com. Baker's, fresh for everyone. Restrictions apply. See site for details.
And right now, you can save when you shop your faves. Just buy 6 or more participating sale items and save 50 cents each with your card. Baker's, fresh for everyone.
Episode 209, Financial Adulting with Ashley Feinstein Gerstley.
Welcome to the Frugal Friends podcast, where you'll learn to save money, embrace simplicity, and live a richer life. Here are your hosts, Jen and Jill.
Welcome to the Frugal Friends podcast. My name is Jen.
My name is Jill.
And we are really excited to share with you our interview with the fiscal femme, Ashley Feinstein Gerstley. She is full of wisdom and knowledge from her 15 years in the financial industry and just a lot of empathy and relatability.
Mm-hmm. So many different topics that we touch on in this podcast. So listen in. Glad to have you here.
But before you listen, let's hear a word from our sponsor. This episode is brought to you by Margaritas. Margaritas invite you to confide your financial woes to them, but not in excess, responsibly. If you're a Frugal Friends listener and you like margaritas, we would like to invite you to celebrate with us tomorrow, April 23rd in St. Petersburg, Florida, at our 4-year anniversary fiesta. So if you'd like to hang out with margaritas and us, please head to frugalfriendspodcast.com/party for more information. If you just want to make a quick trip to St. Petersburg, Florida.
Quick trip for the party.
Yes.
Oh, we would love to see you there.
Oh my gosh, yes. All right. So if you are into financial adulting, if you don't know what financial adulting is, or maybe you love it, definitely tune in for the entirety of this interview. It is good all the way through, especially when we get to the part about consumer activism. I think that was probably my favorite part. But I love the whole interview.
I have another favorite part, and it's going to be obvious when you get there, but definitely listen to at least the Bill of the Week segment to find out my favorite part.
Yeah. Good teaser.
Ooh,
good
yeah,
tease
keep them in it for at least half the episode.
Yes. And some of this does involve mindset shifts. So if you are looking for another episode to tee up after this one, I think episode 139 on money mindset shifts is a really good one. I think this one will challenge you out of some of your norms. I hope it does. But yeah, I mean, we love Ashley. She is the author of Financial Adulting, and the book is a guide that breaks down pretty much everything you need to be financially confident and conscious, which I think are topics that aren't talked about enough, just like confidence and being a conscious consumer. She's also a money coach. She's author of The 30-Day Money Cleanse and the founder of The Fiscal Femme, which is a money platform on a mission to end inequality through financial well-being. And I think you will like her as much as we do.
You can obviously tell she's a powerhouse. Let's get into it.
Welcome, Ashley, to the Frugal Friends podcast. We are so excited to have you.
Thank you. I'm so happy and excited to be here.
Oh, we are so looking forward to diving in, hearing your perspective. You have so many different outlets and resources for people. So I think that this is just going to be a really rich conversation. So let's jump right in with, just a softball here, Ashley.
Yes, let's ease into it.
You talk about financial adulting, and we're curious, what is that and how is it unique to what we're used to hearing about money?
So I think financial adulting, you might think of someone who knows everything, who never makes any mistakes, but that is not the case. I make mistakes. I'm still learning all the time. So to be a financial adult, I have put it into like 4 different criteria. The first is a financial adult takes small, consistent steps in their money life, because there can be a tendency, like if you think about a New Year's resolution, to overhaul your finances in one day or something, or spend a weekend and just change who you are around money. But that kind of sets us up for failure. And these small, consistent, it's tricky to say, small, consistent steps lead to big results and make it more likely that we'll stick with it and continue on. So that's a big one. A financial adult knows what's happening with their money, which might sound simple, but it's actually profound to know what's coming in. What am I spending? What's going to my goals? What are those goals? And that ties into the third piece of financial adulting, is having plans that you're confident in. And I've heard from people that they feel confident in their plan, but they don't know the numbers down to the cent or the T. They're not exactly sure. And so I wouldn't say confidence means that you know exactly how much you need to save for retirement, but that you feel like you have a general guideline, you check in on it every year. So having that confidence in your plan, and that you'll be able to check it and revise as you get closer. And then the final piece of financial adulting is just to understand our privilege and understand the context of equity and money, so that if we do have financial privilege, we use that to help close the racial and gender wealth gaps. And if we're coming from a place of oppression, we understand that and know that the system wasn't made for us, to have some compassion for ourselves and to not compare ourselves with others. So I would say those are the 4 components of financial adulting.
That's amazing. I feel like so often when we use this word adulting, it comes with this connotation of like, I don't want to. I adulted today, but it's always related to something like really boring or like an obligation. But everything that you've described feels like I want that. That doesn't sound scary. It sounds like something that I want to aim for. Mm-hmm. Is that what you're seeing from people, like stepping into adulthood and like embracing it? Or are you identifying barriers for people? What do you see overall with this concept?
Growing up, I thought there was a time where you just felt like an adult. And I realized that you never actually feel like an adult. So I do think breaking down that it is not where I'm all of a sudden this adult with money, that it's just about showing up, learning from our mistakes, learning from the things we do right, celebrating, like we're all kind of in this together. And many of us are starting from a place where we haven't learned about it. We can't talk about it. We just have so much working against us when it comes to personal finance. And so I think, there's also an idea that adulting is an age, and these concepts and taking these steps applies to really any age. And depending on our life and privilege and what we've experienced, we might start financial adulting much later in life. A lot of times we're not doing it right when we graduate college or get our first job. When I think that also is associated with adulting.
I love that you're also not highlighting that it's an arrival point. It's this process. And I think sometimes that goes along with that word of being an adult, adulting, like what you said. I would imagine I would have arrived at some point. All of a sudden a flip switches and I feel like an adult and I don't do the silly things I used to do anymore. But you're kind of flipping the script for how we would define it, that it's this process. It's step by step. It's knowing ourselves, our context, others, the ways in which we're responsible for our life circumstances and the ways in which we're not. Things have happened to us. So much to dig into. You've made it sound really simple, but obviously like each of those steps have so much to it.
Yeah. I also love that it's about confidence and small steps. Like I don't keep a meticulous budget, like our listeners will know that. But I am confident in the fact that I'm saving and maxing out my Roth IRA. I'm saving for my goals and all of that. And so not doing it like a stereotypical personal finance nerd, and knowing you can still financially adult, even if that's not who you are. I love that you pointed that out. I think that's a really unique perspective that we don't hear as often as we should.
Thank you. And I think there's no arrival point is kind of like a sum up in life for our finances, for our goals, for our careers. And also too, to your point that there's not one right way to do it. There's like a million ways. And it's really about what works for you and knowing yourself and what keeps you motivated and keeps you taking those steps and feeling confident.
Absolutely. You talk a lot about equity in finance in your book, while confronting some of your own privilege. So what are some of the biggest barriers you see to equity in personal finance, and what can we do about it?
Yes. So this has definitely been a huge learning journey for me. And I interviewed 35 brilliant and diverse experts for the book. And what I found, and you hear stats, you learn about, hopefully, around the racial wealth gap, that the average white family has a median net worth of $188,000 compared to $24,000 for Black families and $36,000 for Hispanic families. But what I didn't anticipate was just how much this affected every single area of our personal finances. So I think it's hard to pinpoint where it is most difficult, but what you'll see is that if you are a woman, the personal finance world is different for you. If you are a person of color, the personal finance world is different for you. If you're a mother, if you have a disability, if you're in the LGBTQ plus community, and then if you identify as multiple things, right? That is like intersectionality. Now you're having the compound effect, and this affects our income, which affects how much we're able to invest and put towards retirement, whether we're able to stay in a job that has a 401k, or we need to take time off to care for somebody, or if you're, equally, if you have the same or even better credit profile as someone, but now your mortgage is more expensive, or your home is valued less just because you're Black. So there's a chapter in the book on equity and money, but you'll notice that in every chapter, in talking with people, it just comes up in every single area, and they all are interrelated. And I think there's the current situation that impacts someone's finances, but also the historical, because when there's a wealth gap, there's less money to pass down, there's less money available to help a family member when they need support or when they want to start a business. And so it was just so pervasive. And the book points out a lot of the issues. Unfortunately, I wish I had more answers, but some of the experts I interviewed pointed to different changes in policy and in corporate practices. And us, I think one of the wonderful things is, as individuals, I noticed that there was usually someone in someone's life that gave them a nudge, like the person I sit next to at work who said, you really should invest in the 401k plan, or another colleague who said, hey, this is what I earn. Like, what do you earn? So we can compare. Or the friend who said, this is how I budget. How do you budget? That, by becoming financial adults and improving our financial literacy, we can be that person for other people. And so I think that's beautiful. And also, a lot of times it should be enough to do this for ourselves, but sometimes it can be really motivating and inspirational to think, when you're negotiating a raise or when you're building wealth, that it's not only doing it for you and your family, but you are paving the way for others to do the same. So it can add this sense of purpose to our personal finance journeys as women and people of color, or if you're in the LGBTQ plus community, all those different areas.
I love what you're highlighting here about the various levels of impact, speaking to the micro level, the meso level, the macro level. And there's a concept within social work, that's my background, called person and environment, PIE for short. I mean, love pie. So that's great too. But it's in what it is it's calling us to look at, well, what is the context? Because the context is going to inform what's available to various people. What is their environment? They're a person within a context. And that's what you're describing here. But I'd love to hear your perspective on how specifically you see us understanding this concept for whoever we are, whatever context we're finding ourselves in. You listed off a variety of different things that we might find ourselves, aligning with. How do you see that being specifically important to identify, to focus in on this bigger issue in relation to our finances?
So it's interesting. I think if you're imagining and you mentioned how I talked about my privilege in the book. And so imagining just like my personal finance advice or tips from my perspective, let's say when I go through the process of having my home appraised, right? That is a very different experience than when I interviewed Fee Gentry for the book. She talked about different things that someone who is Black or a person of color can do to have their home appraised for what it should be. So that is showing equity in personal finance education, like having education that specifically speaks to your experience and your context and how important that is. Because my experience getting my home appraised, if that was the advice that someone got, they would probably have their home appraised for 23% less because they wouldn't make the changes to have a white person stand there when they're getting the appraisal or remove pictures of their family, it's like horrible that needs to be the case. But having education specific to our experience is so important and what makes the education very usable and valuable. Does that answer your question?
AI might be the most important new computer technology ever. It's storming every industry, and literally billions of dollars are being invested. So, buckle up. The problem is that AI needs a lot of speed and processing power. So, how do you compete without costs spiraling out of control? It's time to upgrade to the next generation of the cloud, Oracle Cloud Infrastructure, or OCI. OCI is a single platform for your infrastructure, database, application development, and AI needs. OCI has 4 to 8 times the bandwidth of other clouds, offers one consistent price instead of variable regional pricing, and of course, nobody does data better than Oracle. So now you can train your AI models at twice the speed and less than half the cost of other clouds. If you want to do more and spend less, like Uber, 8x8, and Databricks Mosaic, take a free test drive of OCI at oracle.com/strategic. That's oracle.com/strategic. oracle.com/strategic.
Simple Truth brand makes it easy to find better for you products that are free from unwanted ingredients. From fresh produce and snacks to household cleaners and more. You won't find artificial ingredients, preservatives, or harsh chemicals in Simple Truth products. So you can fill your fridge and your home with simple, easy-to-understand choices you can feel good about. Just look for the green Simple Truth circle to get the quality items you want, free from the ingredients you don't want. Simple Truth, exclusively at Baker's.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, it's bringing up for me some of my own personal journey and realizing how helpful it was for me to describe my circumstances accurately and then respond to it within my own context. Like there was a time, and I've talked about this before on the podcast in full transparency, where my husband and I were living below the poverty line. Like as it stands in written form, we were making far less than what the government identified for our area was the poverty line. And yet I was acutely aware of the fact that I will never be homeless. Like, I know I don't make a lot of money. I am technically living in poverty, but yet we have such a connection of friends and family, and we are white. And I know that I have privilege and access to things that those in another community would not have access to. And so I think it really helped me to sober minded, okay, this is a reality for me, but also because of these things, I'm not going to be completely destitute. And I need to be careful with the way that I talk about my circumstances, because even though these are my financial circumstances, I need to recognize the ways in which I have privilege and resource and access in ways that others don't. And so, in some ways it's like, yes, I can understand this experience, but in other ways I can't. I don't know what it means to fully be in poverty or homeless, or to be concerned about where my next meal is coming from. And I think that really helped me in like forming a foundation and building upon that to say how I'm going to respond out of that. And then, how I relate to others who might be in different circumstances, and not imprinting my own journey onto others. It's such a broader conversation, but as you're highlighting, I think important for us to realize.
Yeah, I think this topic can feel so overwhelming, and to an extent, like a little mind-blowing, because sometimes it's the more you learn about it, the more it seems like unreal that some of this stuff is going on. And so like, know that even for our listeners, like even in the financial space, like it's still sometimes mind-blowing, like how much of how pervasive some of this is. But I liked how you gave just like a little tip of like being more open about financial topics with the people in your community can start to bring down some of these barriers, some of these walls with people, because you don't know what you don't know. You don't know to ask questions about things that you don't know exist or are good for you. And the more open we are about what we're doing financially, and the more conversations we can have about financial topics openly, the more we normalize it, the more people we can reach with stuff. And like we were just talking this morning about how one of our members in our community, she got a text from a friend who was asking like, I know this sounds weird, but can you help me make a budget? And like she is a member of our community. She doesn't consider herself a financial expert, but when you are confident in your finances, you don't have to be perfect. And when you are open, then people start to ask the questions that will help them. And so I feel like the first small thing we can do to reach more equity is just to be more open and have more like constructive conversations.
I love it. Yes. It's really true, because it can feel like we have no power. And in a lot of ways, I think it's really important to acknowledge the big things that need to change, but then also how do we navigate where it's at right now, and what's the best that we can do, and what are things we can do. And I think transparency and being that person for other people, that like for someone to text her, it shows a lot of things. That shows that she was open to that message, because it often would be completely terrifying to ask someone about that. And that you do not have to be an expert to share what you're doing and share what's worked for you. And like we talked about, there's so many different ways to do it. So someone could take what you're doing and adapt it to work for them. And maybe the thing that they need is exactly what you know how to do. So I think that bringing it back to something we're able to do about it can just give us a little bit more power, as hopefully other things change as well.
Mm-hmm. Speaking of what's in our power and control and influence, you talk about consumer activism. Can you explain this concept, why you see it as being so important?
Yes, it's another place where we can have an impact, and focusing on the places where we can do something about the things that we want to see different in the world. So how I define consumer activism is using our money to vote for what we want to see more of in the world. And that could be in the form of spending. So who we spend our money with, what companies we're supporting, what products we're supporting. It can also be in the form of giving, time and money. I believe it could be in who we bank with, where we invest, what we invest in. So all types of things. In the book, chapter 6 is all on consumer activism. And I found for my own journey, because it's another one that can be really overwhelming and just very unknown. Like there's not really a right or wrong. It's so personal. Companies are big and complicated. So looking to others who were doing this well was doing it. And the people I interviewed for the book to share their consumer activism criteria, I think are way further ahead on their consumer activism journey and are brilliant at it. And so just to hear how they think through decisions to purchase. But again, just like with financial adulting, as we do research, it can feel really overwhelming. So thinking about, okay, every month I'm going to research one expense that I'm making, or I'm going to switch one expense over. So making it very manageable when we're looking at where we're spending our money, and being clear on what is important to us about the companies we spend our money with. So for me, I am passionate about companies that have women and people and women of color on their boards and their management teams. Also, if they're doing things to be more sustainable, that's great too for me. And so there's a long list that you can choose from. But the problem is, if we have too many criteria, then often there's no companies left. So it's important to have some criteria, rank them in order of importance. Can't be too picky. Exactly.
Yeah.
Depending on what the company is. Like, I love supporting women-owned brands and women of color-owned brands. But there was an article, I forget which paper it was with, but someone tried to only support women-owned brands, and there were not a lot of categories that they could purchase in. And so having these criteria, and the goal of it is that companies make changes based on our group buying power, because we are flagging to them that these things are important to us and they want our business. So the goal is not to, if I'm not able to purchase with one company this year, like if I come back next year, maybe they've made changes, and that's what we want to be seeing, is these changes. But always goes back to, the goal is to influence, but it's not only about consumer activism. Like there are other things that need to be done but this is something that we can do, is use our dollars to vote.
This is something I'm learning more about, and something I've heard you talk about, Jen. Like, it's alerted me to like vote with your money. And I love that concept, but then in practicality, it's not convenient. I'll say that much, especially when it comes to banking. It's not convenient. You have to do research. Sometimes the banks that are more equitable, sustainable, investing in quality companies are more difficult to engage with, or they don't have all of the conveniences or accessibility that maybe your larger institutions would have. But that being said, oftentimes when we come up against something that we want to do, we'll jump to the problem first and the reason of why I can't. Like, I'll go to the most complicated reason of why I can't vote with my money, rather than looking at the low-hanging fruit and what is available to me. What's that small thing? Adulting. Yes, love it. What could I do next? So for someone like me, Ashley, where would you say to begin? And I realize that everyone's values are going to be different, but with that in mind, where would someone begin to find the low-hanging fruit in consumer activism?
I love that you brought this up, because it can feel so daunting. And there's also privilege in consumer activism, because often the companies making a sustainable choice or the more equitable choices might be more expensive, or the actual time to do the research, that a lot of people don't have. So I have a Fiscal Femme Slack community, and we now have a consumer activism channel. And I started it because one day I needed new sneakers, and I spent 4 hours researching sneakers. And I was like, you know what? If I do this research and people in my community are doing this research, we should all post about it, or can at least ask each other and then be able to search to use each other's hard work for our benefit. Because
it's like a database you're forming.
Exactly. Because it takes a lot of time. And a funny enough side effect of it is, like, if something's not worth doing the research for, and then you end up just not buying it, it might be a sign that you didn't really want it to begin with. It's like a good way to weed out expenses. But I think it's where to start. So in the book, I have people go through, I think the first thing to think about is what's important to you about companies, and start just listing out some of the things that are important to you and that you want to share values with. Like, what are the values you want to share with companies? Also doing, and this can be overwhelming just in the result, but kind of looking at some of the places that your money is going and seeing how it stacks up. So kind of doing I call them a consumer activism audit. But you can also just dive in. And so I find a really great place for low-hanging fruit is recurring expenses, just because the research you do is something that will, pun intended, pay off over and over with every subscription. And also setting some boundaries. Like Cara Perez, who I interviewed for the book, she founded a company called Bravely Go, and she only does this for her variable spending. So she has made a boundary, like my bills, I'm going with the cheapest thing. I'm going with the thing that is convenient or that works for my life, but I'm going to spend the time in my variable spending, like my shopping, even like it also can get meta because you can even just focus on your groceries. Like in the grocery store, when you decide to buy a dressing, like what are the options? So what's the company I'm supporting? So I think taking one decision a month and kind of researching, looking at it, talking, I think it's a great opportunity to talk to friends about money too, because it doesn't feel as scary as saying, this is how much debt I have, or this is what I earn. Like I want to talk about values, and it's a very rich, again, pun intended, conversation, because there's no right and wrong here. Someone might completely disagree that this company stands for this. And so you can have some really cool and interesting conversations and learn a lot.
I love looking at utilizing money as a tool, not just for our personal lives, a tool to get at the values and goals that we say that we have to live the life that we want, but our money as a tool to support others, to put our money towards the things that we say that we value for the benefit of others, not just the benefit of ourselves. I love the blending that all of those things can be. And probably the simplifying of spending that this can turn into when we really identify, this is who I want to spend with. This is who I'm going to support. This is what I'm going to choose to not buy. And if I can't find alternatives, then can I be content without whatever that thing is? I'll make my own salad dressing if I can't find salad dressing but owned by women.
Yeah. I mean, I think it comes down to we so often, when we're trying to do this equitable thing, or even like the sustainability thing or whatever, we're trying to do something new, we try to fit it into the mold of the life we're already living. And we try to fit it around what we have wanted. But it works a lot better and it's much more sustainable when we change our lifestyle and our desires to fit in the more equitable lifestyle. So that may mean buying fewer or none of some products that you can't find equitable. It doesn't mean everything. And you can definitely choose, I say start with like one or two really important things to you. And it's going to be different for everyone. And if we all picked two things that we really cared about, like that in itself would make a huge difference. You don't have to be perfect or this like activist on the internet that is like
doing
the
everything perfectly.
Yeah.
Yes. There's no perfect in this, unfortunately. Again.
Yeah. And it's a fool's errand to try and be perfect in this. But like
Chidi from The Good Place proves that one out.
Oh my gosh, Chidi.
Every decision has a consequence.
So if everyone just picked one or two things they cared about and really used that as their true north in spending decisions, like we could collectively make a huge impact. Because businesses, companies, corporations, they follow the money. Like they ultimately don't care about people, they care about dollars. And the only way we can make them care about people is to pull the dollars away from them. And this is the only thing that works, even more so than policy changes. Taking money away from these corporations is what works.
And I think too, like in addition to it, it's also what feels natural and easy to you. So if texting your friend, like you found this really cool company feels good, then now they know to use that company. Or if you like to share that this company hired a new woman CEO and you're so pumped about it, like put that on social media. So there's not one way to do it. It's like the actual using your dollars. It's talking about it. It's not using your dollars in certain places. And to your point about buying less and how it lines up, it's funny because even if a company is sustainable, when you're buying a product, it's a thing that took things to make, right? So a lot of times not buying anything is the most sustainable choice, or using what you already have. Tanya Hester, who's also in the book with her criteria, she wrote Wallet Activism, her most recent book. And she was saying that ironically, when people are trying to be more green, they like throw out all of their plastic Tupperware and then buy glass or stainless steel. And like the resources it took to build that when they already had something that was working, but it's deemed like bad or not looking green, has them use so much more resources. So I think just also this being more thoughtful, thinking about things, but it's just good for our wallet, good for our values. There's a lot of wins with it.
Mm-hmm. So the last thing we want to talk about is kind of being your own money coach and like becoming this financial adult by being your own money coach, which I love this idea because I personally, I hate money coaching, not money coaches. I hate doing it myself for other people. So if I could tell people how to be their own money coach, I would actually love to know that.
Teach them how to fish. Don't give them your fish.
And I like hate fishing too. So I hate a lot of things, I guess. So how do you become your own money coach?
Yes. So, and to your point, like you can still hire money coaches. This is not,
I'm not against money coaches.
Personal preference.
I hate coaching.
Yes. And this is like it could be in addition, it could be it just gives you more power to do this on your own. So a few things, a money coach, just like any other coach, is someone who helps us reach our goals, and money coaches are just specific to money goals. So a few things that they do or should do that we can do for ourselves is first cheer ourselves on. If you notice the language we use about money just with ourselves, or even if you're not even sure, but the physical reactions we might have to that language can point to not very nice things being said. So just like cheering ourselves on. Money coaches should also help us learn from our mistakes. And I think there can be a tendency when we make a mistake to kind of punish ourselves, feel shameful, and then just move on without really, because it's so painful, we don't really want to reflect on what happened. But that's the whole point and what we can learn from. Because if let's say, it could be something like, I set a budget for my groceries, or I wanted to spend under this amount, or I wanted to save this amount this month, and it didn't happen. If I don't actually take a look at what happened, I really can't do much different next time. So trying to take the emotion out of it as much as you can and play a little detective at those mistakes to help us get better. Coaches provide accountability, and that's hard to provide it for ourselves, but I'm a huge fan of having money parties. So a monthly time where I sit down and deal with my money, do anything on my to-do list. So having that in the calendar, potentially having friends involved, family, so that we know we're actually going to keep that date. Coaches should also track our progress and again, cheering us on, but celebrating the progress. So having a clear idea of where we are, where we want to be, looking at the milestones along the way. So I think those are the big things that money coaches do that we can do for ourselves that not only increase our chance of success, but also make it more fun along the way and more enjoyable rather than this thing we don't want to deal with and that kind of haunts us all the time.
Oh, I appreciate the way that you listed out the specific things that we can be doing for ourselves that are going to make a huge difference in our approach to money, our perspective on ourselves and it, kindness with ourselves, curiosity, like that investigative approach that you identified, and then the celebration and the fun part. I mean, I'm not going to lie, I linked on to a money party. That sounds really fun.
Jill
and
loves parties.
Follow-up question. What happens when you invite other people to your money party? Do you all sit down and separately do your budget, or what happens at a money party?
Such a good question. So how do you throw a money party? So I call them parties for a reason. I do think you should make them fun. And again, you want to test out things that make them fun for you.
Margaritas.
So at mine, I have a money party playlist. I play songs that pump me up about money. I get cozy. I have tea or I have wine. If you have an alcoholic beverage, I recommend drinking it more towards the end, unless your
the money party
unproductive. But
unless your money's doing really well at the beginning of your money party,
or regardless, you'll think it's doing really well.
Yes.
And you can also reward yourself, and it could be small thing like, I'm going to watch a mindless show after this, or I'll have a money party where all my friends, we know we're having a money party, and then we're going to go meet each other out afterwards. But it's a time to like, look at your numbers. How are my goals doing? It's also really great to compartmentalize our money. Like if there are things that come up throughout the month that you have to deal with that are not urgent, if you're hacked, like deal with that. But otherwise, you can deal with them at the money party. And that's good for our relationships too, with partners who it might be a little bit, money's a stressor. That's the time where you really set the stage. This is a no judgment zone, and we're going to deal with our money at that time. So they can look different for different people, but generally you want the fun vibe. You want to have your agenda going in so you're clear right when you show up what's going to happen, and then reward yourself and make the party itself fun.
Ashley, I have heard of people rebranding, looking at their budget monthly, and they don't always call it budget meetings. There's all sorts of new names we can come up with. I have never heard of anybody saying like, let's invite other people outside of our home to our money party.
I love that.
And it's blowing my mind. And I think this is going to be my biggest takeaway. So thank you. I mean, you said a lot of really great things, but money party is sticking with me.
I actually, right before COVID started, I hosted in-person money parties where we all came together, and then I did digital ones. But there's something about the accountability of that too. If you have guests, whether digital or in person, that are coming, you're going to be more likely to actually stick with the time and to make it more fun and social.
It does so much for motivation, accountability, but then I also think decreasing the stigma around money, because if you're doing that, that means you're talking about it, and it starts to create more and more of a safe place for people to be able to discuss all sorts of topics related to money. If you're doing it in this very like non-confrontational, very lighthearted, playful way on something that is serious, like you're right, we should be sober when we do it for most of the time that we're doing it. But
I guess, Jill,
I think that there's so much that you're highlighting here that's important, and it's fun. And speaking of things that are fun and a party,
oh my gosh,
every single week, the bill of the week.
That's right. It's time for the best minute of your entire week. Maybe a baby was born and his name is William. Maybe you paid off your mortgage. Maybe your car died and you're happy to not have to pay that bill anymore. Duck bills, Buffalo Bills, Bill Clinton. This is the bill of the week.
Ashley, every week we invite a listener or our guest to share with us their bill of the week. And we know you have one for us, and we would love to hear it.
Yes. Okay. So I was thinking about what is my bill of the week, because this is such a fun part of the show, and it's a kind of a weird one, but it's real.
So we're here for weird.
Buckle up.
All right. So this is one, and it's actually hopefully informative, because this can apply if you have health insurance. So my son is getting some type of he's in occupational therapy, and the place I want to take him to is out of network. And so what we're able to do so that we don't have to pay for this out of pocket is there are not other providers in the area that are in network. And so we're able to get an out of network gap exception. So if you ever need something, for example, or a professional who's not in network, a medical professional, and it's not offered in network, you can apply to have that provider in network in your insurance, and so that it is covered. So I feel like that is probably the most money savvy bill situation that we had this week.
Oh, wow. That will be helpful, I'm sure.
Wow. And relevant. It just happened to you this week.
Yes. Oh gosh. That's awesome.
Probably was extra work for you, but it sounds like it's paying off.
It will. Yeah. And I guess it depends on what the bill is, if it's worth the work, but this will be kind of like a long-term weekly thing that we'll now have covered that we didn't have covered before.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Well, if all of you listening have any tips, any worthwhile, whether it's related to medical expenses or, just your uncle named Bill, visit frugalfriendspodcast.com/bill. Leave us your bill. We love it all. We accept it all. Let's hear it.
Simple Truth brand makes it easy to find better for you products that are free from unwanted ingredients. From fresh produce and snacks to household cleaners and more. You won't find artificial ingredients, preservatives, or harsh chemicals in Simple Truth products. So you can fill your fridge and your home with simple, easy-to-understand choices you can feel good about. Just look for the green Simple Truth circle to get the quality items you want, free from the ingredients you don't want. Simple Truth, exclusively at Baker's.
When you download the Baker's app, you have easy access to savings every day. Get the most out of weekly sales and receive personalized coupons to save on your favorite items, all while earning 1 fuel point for every $1 spent. Baker's makes it easy to save while you shop, whether it's in-store or online, so you get the most value out of every trip, every time. Download the Baker's app now to save big on your next purchase. Baker's, fresh for everyone. Must have a digital account to redeem offers. Restrictions may apply. See site for details.
And now it's time for the lightning round.
Pew, pew, pew. So this week, there is a little section of your book, Ashley, and I'm sure it wasn't even like consequential, but like it just stuck out to me. And now it's the lightning round question. Mm-hmm. And I didn't actually read the section, so I'm sure I'm taking it out of context. But again, it just stuck out to me.
Oh my gosh.
So here we are.
This is the spot when Jen likes to be vulnerable and like very honest to the point of like, maybe you shouldn't have said that.
Absolutely. Yeah, I know I shouldn't have, but here we are. So there is a small section in your book called How Much is Enough? And when I read it in the table of contents, I was like, wow, what is enough? How much is enough? How do you decide what is enough for you? Because that's so important. Because if you don't decide what's enough, then you will never have enough. And so I just wanted us to share like how we decided how much is enough. Like not even the number, but just like, how did you decide what to base the number on? So Ashley, you can go first. I'm sure this is a misstrewing of your good work.
Or you could provide us with the cliff notes of that chapter.
So first, nothing is inconsequential. The book was twice as long as it was supposed to be. And I had to cut down like half of the words, which was probably the most painful part of writing the book.
Oh, yes.
And so everything I included, like I tried not to repeat myself. It's been edited down, like only what I think needs to be in there. So definitely appreciate you seeing that section. And it was in the context. So there's a chapter. So, we have the intro about what is financial adulting, equity and money, which I think that context is really critical to be upfront. And then we dive into goals because like you mentioned, like that's the whole point of having money. And most of us are not motivated by having a stack of cash. It's like what we're actually doing with that money that is exciting to us. And so that's why I wanted to kick it off with goals so that we have that motivation in mind. And for a lot of goals, one of the reasons we don't goal set is we're like, how much? Because some of these are so ambiguous, given we don't know what this will cost. We don't know when we need it. We don't know how long we're going to live. So I love where you're taking it is how much is enough, because I have found, and I've been in a situation like as far as income, for example, where I thought, oh, when I hit that next raise, that will be enough. Or when I hit this, that will be enough. And it goes back to like never arriving. If that is how you're basing it, you don't have it based in any reality, you will continue to chase that, in my experience and what I've seen in others. And I'm forgetting the study, but there was a study that because I've talked about this in a workshop actually, that if there's a number that you want, once we achieve that number, we typically just want double again, right? We can, it's easy to lever up. And it stood out to me too when I was, and of course, this is after your needs are met, right? Like you mentioned earlier, wanting for your next meal, having like home security and knowing you're going to have a place to live. But there was a documentary about Bill Gates. It was Inside Bill's Brain. And I remember it stood out to me because there was an episode where he was sitting down with, I don't know if it was Warren Buffett, but he was sitting down with somebody and he was stressed about money. He was stressed about the finances of a project and how there wasn't going to be enough funding. And like, this is he has billions of dollars, and money is still a conversation because just like your projects become bigger. He's trying to end whatever he was trying to end in the world and get clean water everywhere. So that really stood out to me. And so I think it is important, not only I think it's also in our values, like what do we want to create with that and keeping ourselves to it, and being able to celebrate as we build that, because otherwise it's the phrase that I've actually made it as the mantra at the back of my phone. It's already more than enough, or it will never be enough. Yeah. So I guess in a lot of ways, right? Like, what is enough? It could be for a specific goal. So if you're trying to figure out what I need to have saved for retirement versus like, what do I need for my life to be happy? But some of the things that have stood out for me is, and one of my friends actually shared this the other day, but like enough or wealth is like getting to say yes when my kid wants to do an activity, right? And knowing that I can say yes to that activity, and for him to pursue whatever, go swimming or take the gymnastics class. To me, wealth also, or enough, is like freedom and choice. And that actually was a lot of what spurred me to start this company, is when the reason I needed to figure out money is I took a big pay cut when I went from investment banking into corporate finance. And I was bleeding through money, like losing money. My life was unsustainable. And if I didn't figure it out, like I would have to have a higher paying job and not have the flexibility and lifestyle that I wanted. And I was able to quit my full-time job and run the Fiscal Femme because I had money saved. And so to me, like wealth and money gives freedom and choice and the ability to give and support others, and I guess give the freedom and choice to my kids too.
I resonate so much with what you're saying, Ashley. I think I'm acutely aware of the fact that I could have a goal right now, but once I accomplish that, like whatever I would describe as my enough right now, once I get it, it's usually something that I haven't yet achieved. Like, oh, well, it's enough when this happens. And then I'm under no impressions that that's going to, like, okay, then I'm done. Now I'm ready to just like keel over. I'm sure I'm going to identify something that comes next. Like right now, I would tell you, I'm going to feel so good when our renovations are complete. It's going to feel like there's so much money in the bank when we're really able to tighten our belt and we're no longer cash flowing renovations. But I also know that when that's done, I'm going to be like, all right, well, now I want a second story on my garage. And then like, maybe it'd be cool to put a pool in. And then who knows what comes after that. So like, for me, I think that just this question being at the forefront constantly is the thing, like making sure, because to me, this question is what can help me to breed contentment. Like I grew up seeing not only my own parents, but friends' parents, just this whole generation of taking on debt to support a lifestyle that they desired. And I remember promising to myself from like a young age, I will live below my means. Like I do not ever want to take on whatever that means, whatever lifestyle I need to adopt that gives me cushion below that is like what I want. But I can see lifestyle creep. I can see as I'm coming into my career and feeling more established and confident, like I'm not doing all of the amazing things that I used to do when I was actually in a really tough financial place. And sometimes that hurts to look at and see. But this question is really challenging to me. And so I'm hardly answering the question myself because it is such a tension place for me, because I don't think I fully know that. And whatever my answer is, I don't think it's true. But I do think that I want to keep asking myself this for that check of contentment. If no more came in right now, if this is where we plateaued in life, of course, barring like I want to keep growing, I want personal growth and development, but let's just say for some hardship, I can't. I want to know how to be content. So I think that's for me. What I've noticed is like a lifestyle that I think I could probably say across the board is an aim, is like something that covers my needs, like you said, and some of my wants. I don't know that I need to be at the place where like I just like gorge myself on all of the luxuries, but also like enough room for generosity. That's really important to me. So I think when I find myself in that place where like needs, some wants, and generosity to others, that's when I feel most content. And I actually like feel less content when it's like, I want all the things. So this is just a helpful like heart check for me. Can you be content again like you were when you lived in 170 square feet? I don't know, Jill. Come on. Can you? I'm going to listen back to this podcast later and ask it to myself.
For me, I would say when my income can support our family. Like right now we just live on Travis's, but we'd love to switch that so that he can like come home and kind of spend more time with our son and do the things he wants to do. So our goal is just to flip-flop that. But we also did just close on a house, hopefully by the time this episode airs. Gosh, who knows? So that does need renovations. And so, yeah, at present, like our income and expenses, like it is enough. But again, we have like the goals, like we decided to take on this real estate investment, which is going to cost money and which we need to, raise our income for a period of time. So yeah, I would say we are, it's been a hard year kind of coming to terms with the fact that we actually are at enough for our lifestyle. We are increasing that like intentionally. But I'm always one to like go more. I am very much the person I have to tell myself, like, you have to decide what enough is or nothing will ever be enough. I'll just double like my goal every time I hit it. So that is very much me. So I found this like exercise very challenging, but freeing as well. So yeah.
Ashley, thank you for drawing our attention to so many important concepts today of our own life story, of what it means to adult, of how we can aim at greater levels of equity in all aspects of our environments. And you've got more. Where can people get more?
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. This has been an incredible conversation. You can learn more at financialadultingbook.com.
Awesome. And on Instagram, what are you?
The Fiscal Femme. The Fiscal Femme on all of the social.
Perfect. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for coming on, Ashley.
Thank you again.
See ya. Wow.
I think after every interview, you say that.
Mm-hmm. Money party. Do I say that? Party. Do I ever say that?
Don't, but
money party.
Yes, that was the teaser. That's Jill's favorite
There it
part.
was.
Yes.
I'm going to try and plan my next one. Although my next money party is essentially the party that's happening tomorrow. The Frugal Friends 4-year.
Oh my gosh.
Practically. Yes. That's a money party.
It's a different kind of party.
But it's mostly a margarita party.
Yeah, it's mostly. Thank you, margaritas.
Margarita money madness.
But I think the money party is a really great way to create some of those open, honest conversations about money. Yes. Like if there are people around you that are, people of color, women, LGBTQ, like there are a lot of things stacked against certain groups of people. Mm-hmm. And be intentional. It's not awkward to be intentional about including them in the conversation about money, to invite them to your money party, to talk about money topics openly, how much you make, what your budget looks like, what your core values are that influence your spending.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a tough thing, but we are not going to be able to aim at equity unless we do start to speak more transparently about like real money figures to see where the gaps are and how we can help to elevate others in our community.
Yeah.
And so I think one of the things that Ashley really highlighted with this, yes, money party, but all of the different things we can be talking about at these parties. I mean, it doesn't just have to be we get together and budget together. It obviously there's consumer activism to talk about. There's equity and inequality and gaps to be talking about. And there's real tangible tips to be talking about. Like, yes, there's space to talk about how do we budget? How do we get at some of these goals? Zero waste, the environment, simplicity, minimalism. Like, if there's an even more overarching takeaway with Ashley, I think for me it's that, like, how many different intersections there are, how much more space there is for money conversations.
Yeah, I think it's a small thing that we can do is to create these conversations, because you don't know what you don't know. And I think that when you are living in a place of privilege, no matter how you feel about that word, you are influenced by the people around you in how you spend, earn, and invest. And if you know something, don't assume that everybody else knows it. If you do something, don't assume everybody else does it. If there's something working for you, then share it. You don't have to be a financial expert to share your experience about money. You are an expert in your experience. So I would just encourage everyone to be your own little mini money expert. We need so many of them. There's there's so much room for more. So yeah, I really love the takeaways from this one.
Show and tell money party. Ooh, it's brewing. Brainstorming's brewing.
I'm excited.
There's also so much room for all of you, our listeners. Thank you so much for tuning in, listening to another one. And we also want to thank you for your kind reviews on Apple Podcasts, like this one. Comes from Hudson Valley Mom If For. Maybe of wasn't available, so Mom If For. Titled Love Them, 5 stars. Thank you for your easy to listen to and encouraging podcast. I'm a wife and mom of 4 kids, ages 21 down to 13. We have a lot of unplanned expenses with college and sports programs, but you help me to find ways to think ahead and plan better for these unexpected bills. Your fun and easy ideas help me to keep moving forward. Thanks for all you do. Keep up the good work.
Woo!
Oh, Hudson Valley Mom If For. We are so thrilled to be here for you. And it sounds like you got a lot going on. That is quite the age range of children. So I'm just pleased to be a small part of that journey. Thanks for listening.
We also want to thank all of our friends who share these episodes on social media. So when you share the latest episode on Instagram, we are going to add you to our monthly drawing. For every 5 tags and reviews we get every month, we give away $50 for you to spend in the Frugal Friends shop.
So keep leaving us those amazing reviews wherever you listen to podcasts, and send the screenshot of that review that you write to reviews@frugalfriendspodcast.com. Keep tagging us on social. This is how you get into that drawing.
And we will see you next week.
Bye.
Frugal Friends is produced by Eric Siriani.
Jen.
Yes, Jill.
Speaking of margaritas, our sponsor, tying it in, bringing it full circle.
Please do.
So at our party tomorrow, we are going to be serving margaritas, but to save on time and money, we're going to be pre-making them. Like, probably right now, that's what we're doing.
Yes.
If it's Friday, that's what we're doing.
If you're listening to this at 6 a.m. on a Friday, we're pre-mixing margaritas.
If you're listening to it on 8 a.m. on Friday, we're tasting the pre-made margarita.
You got to test them.
Taste testing.
You got to test them.
And I got the pitchers that they're going to be served out of. Now, if you're also listening, don't be scared. We are having a bartender keep track of it's not going to be a free-for-all. People aren't just coming up and pour in their own pre-made margs.
That would be too expensive. The margs would be gone too soon.
And
so it's more cost effective to hire somebody to distribute the goods.
That part's true. Yeah. And also I'm going to be really excited when we get to write off a bartender as a business expense. Okay. But this is I also got pitchers, like large glass,
They are
2.5 gallon pitchers to serve the margaritas out of. The bartender's going to serve the margaritas, the pre-made margs that we made at 8 a.m. to people on Saturday at 6 p.m.
Uh-huh.
Now, when I went to get them, I got them on Facebook Marketplace because I'm frugal. You know me.
Frugal,
Hey, I'm over here on the marketplace
Over here.
getting deals.
It's Earth Day.
And so,
secondhand.
and I also got them glass. They're not plastic, and we will reuse them and again. And I'll let people borrow them. So it's great. When I picked them up from this woman, she was like, and typically the pictures of these pitchers, it's like you could serve lemonade out of one and tea out of another. That's not what we're doing. It's margs out of both.
Mm-hmm.
And she says
Double
to me, "Oh, are you having a party?" And I'm like, "Yeah, definitely having a party." She says, "We just used these for our wedding recently and we served pre-made margs out of them." And I'm like, "Well, they're getting back to their roots because that's exactly how we intend to use them."
Yeah.
Pew, pew, pew.
Oh, wow. What
Yes.
a story.
Me and my lady from Facebook Marketplace giving me a deal and aligned in values.
And you don't get these stories when you buy things from the store.
No, you just don't. Saw a new part of St. Petersburg, got a deal, got glass jars, ready for the margs.
Oh my gosh.
Mm-hmm.
Well, we're ready. So be ready to see our fun on Instagram at Frugal Friends Podcast. We'll post like one story.
Yeah, because the rest of the time,
We'll be drinking
you
margs.
know.
Yeah.
See you there if you're local.
Simple Truth brand makes it easy to find better for you products that are free from unwanted ingredients. From fresh produce and snacks to household cleaners and more. You won't find artificial ingredients, preservatives, or harsh chemicals in Simple Truth products. So you can fill your fridge and your home with simple, easy-to-understand choices you can feel good about. Just look for the green Simple Truth circle to get the quality items you want, free from the ingredients you don't want. Simple Truth, exclusively at Baker's.
At Baker's, shopping with pickup and delivery is the same as shopping in-store. Same low prices, deals, and rewards on the same high-quality items. It's one small click for groceries, one big win for busy families everywhere. Start your cart today at bakersplus.com. Baker's, fresh for everyone. Restrictions apply. See site for details.
And right now, you can save when you shop your faves. Just buy 6 or more participating sale items and save 50 cents each with your card. Baker's, fresh for everyone.